Welcome. And so we continue with the saga of the cat's eye. Page 10 of Troy Kiger on his journey from his home world to another world. Kiger, he said into the mic. Kigers, the finder announced. Gentle homos, gentle femmes, visit Kigers, where the living treasures of a thousand worlds are paraded before you. See and hear the Lumian talking fish, the Dufuld, the priceless Faxian change coat, the only one of its kind known to be in captivity alive. This is pretty dark writing. And by the way, I want to give a really big shout out to Jeff. Jeff knows who he is because funny thing happened. Now, I read this book when I was like in my late teens. I had the first copy. I don't know how I came across it. Fascinating. I always have to deviate. But I've also got a hardback copy of this book. So I've bought 3 copies. No, I actually bought 2 copies. One was given to me from someone in a collection. Anyway, let's continue. For those that like to party, this is probably not a good live stream for you because you might get a little bit bored because I like to read stuff. And these are things that have had a profound effect on my life. And they've affected other people that I've come across because I've shared the stories from this. And there's a lot to be held in Andre Norton's Cat's Eye because the connection is strong. Or should I say, like Yoda said, the force is strong within you. Anywho. So the Lumian talking fish, the Doffwald, we don't know what that is. The priceless Faxian change coat, the only one of its kind known to be in captivity. Follow the light, gentle homo, gentle femme, to Kigers, merchant dealer in extraordinary pets. A small spark, which had glowed into life on the wall below the map, loosed itself and now danced through the air ahead, blinking with a gem flash. A pet shop. The inquiry about animal knowledge was now explained, but Troy lost some of his zest. The thin story he had told the assigner was now even thinner, to the point of being full of holes. So don't ever lie about stuff that you do. You know, I mean, it's really important because when you lie, there is no stepping back to give yourself credulity. Is it credulity? I think it is credulity, actually. So you lose your credulity, your credibleness, your credulity. Don't ever lie, because if you lie, there are no stepping stones that go beyond that. So his thin story was full of holes. He was 10 years out of Norden, 10 years away from any contact with animals at all. Yet Troy clung to one hope. The assigner had sent him, and the machine was supposed to be always right in its selection, ironically. Where are we now? It's machines that are telling us what to do. do this, do that, vote for this, vote for that, whatever you want to do with your selection. He looked about him. This is Troy. The massed foliage, they actually misspelled that. Foliage of the centre square was a riot of luxuriant vegetation, which combined plants and shrubs from half a dozen worlds into a pattern of growing red, green, yellow, green, blue, green, silver. And he began to long with every fibre of his semi-starved body that it would be the one Kyger wanted, even for just one day. Now imagine you've travelled to another world and you just want one day of work. That's ridiculous. But there we are. This is the story. Let's continue. His spark guide danced up and down as if to centre his attention on the doorway before it had on the doorway before which it had paused and then snuffed out. Troy faced Kyger's display and drew a deep breath of wonder, for he seemed to be staring at 4 different landscapes, each occupying 1/4 of the space. Landscapes. And each landscape was skillfully contrived so that a section of an outlandish planet had been transported in a miniature. In each, small creature moved about, the business of living and dying. It was all art 3D, of course, so it wasn't real. The workmanship was superb and would completely enthrall any prospective customer. Reluctantly, Troy approached the door itself, a barrier where plexiglass had been impressed with a startling and vivid pattern of weird and colourful insects, none of which he recognised. There was no sign that the establishment was open for business, and he had no guide to lead him beyond the mass of buildings to a rear entrance, I might add. Troy hesitated uncertainly before the closed door until, among the imprisoned creatures of the centre panel, a portion face with reasonable human features appeared. Round dark eyes set in a yellow skin regarded him with no trace of interest or emotion, while Troy held up his wrist so that the employment mark might be fully visible to those eyes. Unblinkingly, they centered upon it. And then the stretched out yellow cheek, the broad nose, it vanished. The creatures in the panel seemed to flutter as that barrier arose. I mean, you can't make any of this up. This was a woman that wrote this, and she was not a young woman, by the way. Fascinating. And after the barrier arose, a warm flow of air came through, redolent with many strange smells, engulfed Troy. I mean, imagine you're on another world, you know? I mean, you've physically gone there and there it is. He was given no time to look about the outer reception lounge, with its wall cabinets of more miniature otherworld scenes, for the owner of the eyes was awaiting him impatiently, I might add. Used as he was to oddities, humans, humanoid, and non human, Troy still found the small man strange that he met. Enough to study covertly. He could have walked under Horan's unstretched arms, but his small, wiry body was well proportioned and not that of a dwarf. Now, there are little people. We know this. In fact, the creature in my walls may not be a mouse at all. It may be a little people. So, so Troy still found the small man strange and enough to study covertly. We know this. But his small, wiry body was well proportioned. So this is not a dwarf. This is a it's not a dwarf because dwarfs generally they have like short arms and legs, and it's improportionate to the head and the central part of the body, the torso, as they call it. So we are talking about a little people here, right? So everything is in proportion. What hair What hair he had was black and grew in small tufted knobs, tight to the rounded bowl of the skull. And in addition, there was a rough brush of the same black on his upper lip, and two tufts or knots on his chin, one just below the centre of his lower lip, and the other on the point of the jaw beneath. His clothing was the conventional one-piece suit of an employed sub-citizen. Now that's weird. Sub-citizen? Hmm. With the striking addition of a pair of boots clinging tightly to his thin legs and extending knee-high, fashioned of reptile skin, as soft as a glove leather, giving off tiny prismatic sparks with every movement of the wearer. Well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? But there we are. I mean, this was a woman that Andre Norton is her alter ego, right? Brilliant writer though. Anywho, about a slight pot belly, he had a belt of the same hide, and the knife that swung from it was not only longer but also wider than the usual worn in Tikil. It's obviously another land, but we're talking about many lands here, you know? I mean, do we really know what land we're living on? Anywho, come. His voice was guttural. A crook of a finger pointed the way, and Troy followed him through two more showrooms into a passage from which opened a number of screen doors. Now the F effluvium, effluvium. Now that's a word I haven't come across yet. Now the effluvium of animal, a great many animals, was strong, and sounds from each of the screened doors they paused testified to the stock of Kyger kept on hand. Troy's guide continued to the end of the hall, set his small hand into the larger impression of a palm lock, and then stood aside Horan to enter. If the yellow man was an oddity, the man who sat waiting for Troy to the cross in his office was almost as great a surprise. Horan had seen many of the merchants of Tikil, and all ultra fashionable dress, ultra fashionable. Remember, people like to wear some really weird stuff. Their eye-catching coiffures had all been designed as an advertisement to attract general attention. But Kyger, if this was Kyger, was no such starburst. His muscular body was covered with a Hora silk half tunic and kilt, but the colour was of a dark and sober blue, and he wore no jewels at all. On his right wrist was the broad service bracelet of a veteran spacer, with at least 2 constellations starring its sweep, while his skull was completely shaven, as if to accommodate the helmet of a scout ship man. The bareness, that deeply tanned stretch of skin, made the red, puckered scar down along his right ear. These people, I mean, we are these people as well. When you travel through life, you're going to get scarred, I might add. And I've been scarred, but I got back up, and that's why I'm here reading this story, because this story is one of those that had a profound effect on not just my life, but other people's lives. They may not have actually read the story, but what I told them about the story, I think there was a little message in there. So, on his right wrist, he bore the broad service bracelet of a veteran spacer, with at least 2 constellations starring its sweep, and his skull was shaven. The bareness of that deeply tanned stretch of skin, and he also had a scar from experience. Troy wondered fleetingly why he chose to keep that disfiguring brand. Plastic surgery could have erased it completely. The other regarded Troy for a long moment, his stare both as aloof and as searching as the yellow man had used through the door panel. The assigner reported you as Norden, he remarked, but gave the planet name as slight accent to Troy. I would rather have thought Midgard. So, I mean, there's a little bit of Tolkien in this. However, remember this. Tolkien was influenced by William Morris's writing, right? And if you don't know about William Morris, well, there's the name. Go to have a look. Great man. Beautiful textile designs. I mean, really, really artistic. And he wrote a book. I had a copy of it. I think he was involved in The Worm Ouroboros, which is a book as well. Before Tolkien, I might add. The reason that I talk here on YouTube is purely to share my readings. Okay? I don't judge anyone. You can diss me if you like. Really doesn't bother me. But there's some really amazing writers, and when you go and have a look at these people, they're not just writers. A lot of them are psychologists. You've got Michael Moorcock, Heinlein, Asimov, this lady who calls herself Andre Norton. Not Andre Norton. Don't know her real name. But yeah, she is actually listed as the writer of this book. And it was Jeff that pointed that out to me. So, but there's, oh yeah, and there's TJ Bass as well. And Pierce on a minute. Not Pierce Anthony. Pierce Anthony, another brilliant writer. But these folks will blow your mind. I mean, if you actually, I mean, when we get off intranet and connect with what's real, there's something really amazing to be found. And then obviously go out and look at nature, because we are nature. So this guy's on Kyga. Troy is on Kyga. And he came from, God, I can't even remember where he came from. Was it Norden? Yeah, his name's Troy Horan. He came from Corwa, and he's now on Kyga. There it is. I am going to go back to The Hitchhiker's Guide at some point, but this is such a weird story, and what really blew my mind about this book was the fact that, and I don't get into, I don't like, what's his face? The Tesla dude. I'm so glad that I can't remember names sometimes, because these guys are just arseholes, aren't they? You know what I mean. Anyway, the funny thing is that this woman was writing about stuff like that all these years ago. And now they're pushing this on us. And I find that so fascinating. And TJ Bass with the God Whale, which should arrive any day, hopefully. Because, yeah, I don't know where my copy went, but it disappeared. But anyway, they all wrote about things that are happening now. And it isn't just the physical. It is about, the connection that people are having with one another and with nature, and animals and insects and everything. And also the remembering of how to grow things and remembering how to save seeds and things like that, because I guarantee you, what you buy in the shop, even plant-based, that is dead. That is dead. It really, try not to eat it if possible. If it doesn't, I watch. If my garlic grows, my onion grow, my potatoes start to grow things, I know that that is still alive. If it starts to put out a little sprout, my sweet potatoes, things like that, you can grow stuff from that. Just one of them, one of them seeds. From small seeds, big trees grow. And with that, my darlings, I thank you. If you care to listen, I wish you the best every day to come. In Lakesh.